My selfish parents demanded I give my golden child sister my apartment as her art studio, so I changed the locks and watched her whole fake career collapse. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get this off my chest before I lose my mind. I'm James, 30M, and I've been the family scapegoat my entire life while my younger sister Emily, 26F, has been the golden child who could do no wrong. Growing up, Emily learned early that she could get away with anything. When she was 7 and I was 11, she broke my PlayStation by pouring juice into it because I wouldn't let her play. When I told our parents, Richard, now 58M, and Barbara, now 56F, they said I shouldn't have been so selfish with my belongings. They made me apologize to her for making her feel excluded. That PlayStation. I'd saved for 2 years doing odd jobs around the neighborhood to buy it. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. Emily would destroy my things, steal my money, lie about me to get me in trouble, and our parents would always find a way to make it my fault. You're the older one, James. You need to be more understanding. Or my personal favorite, Emily is sensitive and artistic. You need to give her space to express herself. By the time I was in high school, I'd learned to hide everything important to me. I got a part-time job at 16 and opened a bank account my parents didn't know about. I studied at the library instead of home because Emily would deliberately make noise or cause drama whenever I had important tests. When I got accepted to college with a partial scholarship, Emily threw a tantrum because the attention was on me for once. My parents' response? They threw her a congratulations on finishing sophomore year party the next day to make her feel better. I moved out at 18 for college and never moved back. I worked 3 jobs to avoid taking any money from my parents because it always came with strings attached. Strings that usually meant doing something for Emily. I graduated with a degree in software engineering, got a decent job, and slowly built my life away from them. 2 years ago, I finally saved enough to buy my own apartment. It's nothing fancy, a 2-bedroom place in a decent neighborhood about an hour from my parents. But it's mine. I converted the 2nd bedroom into a home office since I work remotely 3 days a week. For the first time in my life, I had a space that was entirely my own, where Emily couldn't destroy my things or my parents couldn't guilt me into giving her whatever she wanted. Of course, that couldn't last. Emily decided about 18 months ago that she wanted to be an artist. Not just any artist. She was going to be the next big thing in modern art. The problem? She had no talent, no training, and no discipline. But my parents immediately converted our childhood home's garage into an art studio for her. They spent $15,000 they didn't have on supplies and equipment. Emily used it for about a month before complaining it was stifling her creativity because it was too suburban. She then convinced them to rent her a studio space downtown for $2,000 a month. My parents, already stretched thin financially, took money from their retirement to cover it. Emily used that space for maybe 3 months before deciding the energy was wrong. The list of excuses went on. The lighting was bad, the other artists in the building were jealous of her talent, the landlord was hampering her creative process by expecting rent on time. Throughout all this, I kept my distance. I'd learned that engaging with Emily's drama only made things worse. I'd send obligatory texts for birthdays and holidays, show up for major family events for exactly 2 hours, and otherwise live my life. It was working. Then, last week, everything exploded. My parents called and asked me to come for Sunday dinner. They said it was important and that they needed to discuss something as a family. I should have known better, but I went. I arrived to find Emily's art supplies already being loaded into a rental truck. My parents sat me down with these serious expressions, and my mother started with, "James, family helps family." The bottom line, Emily had decided that what was really holding her back was not having a private, intimate space for her art. She needed somewhere with authentic energy, where she could truly connect with her craft. And apparently, she decided that place was my apartment. Specifically, my home office. Not to use it occasionally. Not to borrow it. To have it. Permanently. My parents explained, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world, that I should convert my home office into Emily's art studio. She would have her own key and could come and go as she pleased. I could move my desk into my bedroom or the living room. After all, I just typed on a computer, while Emily was creating art that would change the world. When I said no, all hell broke loose. Emily started crying, saying I had never supported her dreams. My father accused me of being selfish and materialistic. My mother pulled the guilt card, reminding me of all the sacrifices they'd made for me. What sacrifices, I still don't know. They ganged up on me for 2 hours, tag teaming between guilt, anger, and manipulation. Emily actually said, and I quote, "You've always been jealous of my talent. You can't stand that I'm going to be successful while you're just another corporate drone." The woman who has never held a job for more than 3 months, who has sold exactly 0 pieces of art, who has been financially supported by our parents her entire life, called me unsuccessful. I make 6 figures. I own my apartment. I have savings and investments. But none of that matters because I'm not artistic. I left. They've been blowing up my phone since then. The messages range from, "You're being ridiculous. It's just one room. Emily is going through a tough time. The least you could do is help your sister. We're not asking for much. Stop being so selfish. If you don't do this, you're no longer part of this family." That last one is from my father. The man who has given Emily probably $200,000 over the years, while I've never asked for a cent since I turned 18, is threatening to disown me because I won't give her my home office. Emily has been posting on social media about how family betrayal is fueling her new art series. She's telling everyone who will listen that I'm a horrible brother who doesn't support women in the arts. Some of her friends have actually been messaging me, calling me sexist and saying I'm intimidated by strong, creative women. I feel like I'm going insane. Am I really the bad guy here? Is it really that unreasonable to not want to give my sister unlimited access to my apartment? To want to keep the space I worked for years to afford? I've been sitting here for 3 days, staring at my phone as the messages pile up. Part of me wants to give in just to make it stop. The other part of me is so angry I can barely think straight. 30 years. 30 years of being the scapegoat, the afterthought, the one who has to sacrifice so Emily can have whatever she wants. And now they want my home? I don't know what to do. Update 1, 3 days later. I want to thank everyone who responded to my original post. I read every single comment, and it felt like a fog lifting from my brain. You're right. I've been gaslit and manipulated for so long that I actually questioned whether I was wrong for not giving my adult sister my apartment. After posting, I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. I took action. First, I called a locksmith. I had all my locks changed to high-security deadbolts with keys that can't be copied without my authorization. It cost me $400, but the peace of mind was worth every penny. Next, I installed a security system with cameras. Front door, back door if applicable, and one in the hallway leading to my apartment. Everything feeds to my phone, and it records to the cloud. Another $600, but again, worth it. Then I sat down and wrote a message to my family group chat. I have given this a lot of thought, and my answer is final. No. Emily will not be getting access to my apartment for any reason. This is my home, purchased with my own money, and I have the right to decide who enters it. I am not responsible for Emily's art career or lack thereof. She is 26 years old and capable of figuring out her own workspace solutions. Do not come to my apartment uninvited. I have installed security cameras and changed the locks. Any attempt to harass me at my home will result in me calling the police. I need space from all of you to process the fact that you think it's acceptable to demand I hand over my home to someone else. Please respect my boundaries. The response was immediate and explosive. Emily called me 17 times in a row. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that progressed from crying to screaming to threatening to kill herself if I didn't stop being selfish. I saved all of them. My mother sent walls of text about how disappointed she was, how I was tearing the family apart. How could I do this to my poor sister who just needed support? She said my father was so upset he could barely eat, doubt it, and that I was giving her migraines with my cruelty. My father's messages were shorter but nastier. He called me ungrateful, said I was no son of his, and that I'd regret this when they were gone. He actually said I was probably happy to hurt Emily because I'd always been jealous of her light. Her light. The woman who has been a black hole of need and destruction my entire life has light. But here's where it gets interesting. Emily showed up at my apartment building the next day. I was at work, but my cameras caught everything. She had a key. She actually had a key to my apartment that I didn't know about. She tried to use it, but of course, it didn't work because I'd changed the locks. The footage shows her going from confused to angry to absolutely unhinged. She kicked my door. She screamed that I had no right to lock her out of her studio. She yelled that she was going to sue me for stealing her creative space. Several neighbors came out to see what was happening, and one elderly lady threatened to call the police. Emily left, but not before spray painting "selfish" on my door. I couldn't believe it. How did she have a key? I called my mother, and after some pressing, she admitted that when I'd given them a spare key for emergencies when I first moved in, she'd made copies for herself, my father, and Emily, just in case. They'd all had access to my apartment this entire time. The violation, I felt, was indescribable. I took the camera footage to the police and filed a report for vandalism. I also started the process for a restraining order. The officer I spoke with was incredibly helpful and said I had a clear case, especially with the saved voicemails where Emily threatened self-harm to manipulate me. I then sent another message to the family group chat with a photo of my vandalized door. Emily vandalized my property today. I have filed a police report and am pursuing a restraining order. I have also discovered you all had unauthorized copies of my keys. This is a massive violation of my privacy and trust. Any further attempts to contact me regarding Emily's art studio or to access my apartment will be met with legal action. I am done being the family scapegoat. Find someone else to enable Emily's delusions. Then I blocked them all. The flying monkeys came out immediately. Cousins, aunts, uncles, family friends, everyone had an opinion. The story they'd been told was that I'd promised Emily she could use my space and then cruelly reneged, leaving her artistic dreams in ruins. Some believed me when I told the truth. Others said I should just give in to keep the peace. I blocked them too. For the first time in my life, I'm standing up for myself, and it's both terrifying and exhilarating. I keep waiting for the guilt to hit, but instead, I just feel free. Update 2, 1 month later. The last month has been a whirlwind, but I wanted to update everyone who's been following this situation. After I blocked my family, the extinction burst was real. They tried everything to get to me. They showed up at my workplace, security escorted them out. They sent letters to my apartment, I returned them unopened. They even tried to get my landlord involved, claiming they were worried about my mental health and needed to do a welfare check. Fortunately, my landlord is a decent guy, and when I showed him the police report and restraining order paperwork, he told them not to contact him again. Emily, in particular, went completely off the rails. She posted a series of videos on social media about how her abusive brother was sabotaging her career out of jealousy. She actually started a GoFundMe claiming she needed money for a new studio because her brother had reneged on a promise and left her homeless. She still lives with our parents. She raised $340, mostly from her enabling friends who don't know the real story. But here's where karma started to kick in. Remember that expensive studio my parents were renting for her? Well, turns out they'd been late on rent several times, and the landlord finally had enough. He evicted her. All her art supplies that were still there, because she never actually used the space, were put in storage, and she had 30 days to pay the back rent plus storage fees or they'd be auctioned off. My parents, already financially strapped from years of funding Emily's career, couldn't cover it. They actually had the audacity to reach out through a cousin to ask if I'd help pay to get her supplies back. The cousin, who's actually reasonable, laughed when she called me and said, "I told them you'd say no, but they insisted I try." Emily lost all her supplies. Thousands of dollars worth of professional-grade materials my parents had bought her, gone. But it gets better. Emily had been dating this guy named Marcus for about 6 months. I put dating in quotes because from what I could tell, he was just another person she was using. He paid for everything, drove her everywhere, she doesn't have a license, and constantly posted about what an amazing artist she was. Well, Marcus reached out to me on social media. Turns out, Emily had been telling him that I was letting her use my apartment as a studio, and she'd been taking him there when I was at work, using that key I didn't know she had. She'd been selling him pieces she claimed to have created in her studio, except she wasn't creating anything. She was buying cheap art from online sellers and passing it off as her own. When I changed the locks and she couldn't access my apartment anymore, she had to keep making excuses about why Marcus couldn't see her workspace. He got suspicious, did some reverse image searches on the art he'd bought, and discovered the truth. He dumped her and is considering small claims court for fraud. The best part? Marcus is friends with several gallery owners Emily had been trying to network with. Word got around. Emily is now essentially blacklisted from the local art scene. My parents, meanwhile, are fracturing under the pressure. My dad, always the enabler but never the one dealing with Emily's day-to-day drama, is getting frustrated with her constant meltdowns. My mom is exhausted from Emily's emotional manipulation but can't bring herself to set boundaries. They're fighting constantly, and according to that same cousin, they're considering selling their house to downsize because they can't afford their current lifestyle anymore. Not after years of funding Emily. As for me, I'm thriving. I've started therapy to deal with the years of manipulation and gaslighting. My therapist is helping me understand that I'm not responsible for Emily's failures or my parents' financial problems. She's also helping me process the grief of realizing I never really had the family I thought I did, or hoped I could have. I've also started dating someone, Sarah, a colleague from a different department. She's kind, independent, and comes from a functional family. What a concept. When I told her about this situation, she was appalled but also incredibly supportive. She actually said she was impressed by how I handled everything. Work has been going well too. Without the constant stress of family drama, I've been more focused and productive. My manager noticed and mentioned I'm being considered for a promotion to team lead, which would come with a substantial raise. I've redecorated my home office, the one Emily wanted to take over. I bought a new desk, upgraded my computer setup, and even put up some actual art, from real artists, purchased at fair prices. Every time I sit in there, I'm reminded that this is MY space, earned with MY hard work, and no one can take it from me. Final update, 4 months later. I wasn't planning on updating again, but so much has happened that I felt I needed to share the conclusion of this saga. Emily's life has completely imploded. After being blacklisted from the art scene and losing Marcus, she spiraled hard. She started drinking heavily and got arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct after causing a scene at a gallery opening she wasn't invited to. She screamed that they were all jealous of her talent and that she was being persecuted for being a true artist. The arrest was a wake-up call for my father. He finally put his foot down. He told Emily she either needed to get a job and start contributing or find somewhere else to live. Emily, who has never faced a real consequence in her life, thought he was bluffing. She was wrong. When she refused to even look for work, my father gave her 30 days' notice. My mother fought him on it, but he held firm. This caused a huge rift between my parents, and they're now in marriage counseling. According to my cousin, who has become my only source of family updates, the counselor has been helping them see how they've enabled Emily to the detriment of everyone, including her. Emily moved in with one of her enabling friends, but that lasted about 2 weeks before the friend kicked her out for not paying rent and eating all her food without replacing it. She's now couch surfing and posting increasingly unhinged things on social media about how the world doesn't appreciate true visionaries. The restraining order went through, by the way. Emily is legally required to stay 500 feet away from me and my apartment. She violated it once about 2 months ago, showing up drunk at 2 a.m. and screaming that I'd ruined her life. I called the police, and she spent the night in jail. She hasn't tried again since. My parents reached out last month through my therapist, with my permission. They wanted to apologize. I agreed to one meeting, with my therapist present. It was enlightening. They admitted they'd always known Emily was difficult but didn't know how to handle it. They admitted they'd put unfair expectations on me because I was the easy one, and they knew I could take care of myself. They admitted they'd failed both of us, me by neglecting my emotional needs and Emily by never teaching her accountability. My mother cried when she told me about finding my hidden bank account statements from when I was a teenager and realizing I'd been saving money in secret because I didn't feel safe. She said it broke her heart to realize I'd felt I had to hide from my own family. My father apologized for threatening to disown me. He said it was a wake-up call when I actually followed through on boundaries while Emily just made threats. He realized he'd been rewarding the wrong behavior for decades. I appreciated their apologies, but I made it clear that words weren't enough. If they wanted any kind of relationship with me going forward, they needed to 1. Continue therapy, both individual and couples. 2. Never ask me for money for Emily. 3. Never try to guilt me into contact with Emily. 4. Respect my boundaries completely. 5. Accept that I may never want a relationship with Emily again. They agreed to everything. We're now doing monthly coffee meetings, just coffee, in public, for an hour. It's progress. Slow, cautious progress. Emily found out about these meetings and lost her mind. She sent me a letter, through a flying monkey since she's blocked everywhere, that was 10 pages of pure narcissistic rage. Everything was my fault. I'd turned our parents against her. I'd sabotaged her career. I'd destroyed her life out of jealousy. She even blamed me for Marcus leaving her, claiming I must have poisoned him against her. I gave the letter to my therapist, who used it as a perfect example of narcissistic personality disorder. We actually had a bit of a laugh about the part where Emily claimed I was jealous of her natural charisma and talent. My therapist said it was one of the most delusional things she'd read in her career. As for me, I'm doing better than I ever have. The promotion came through. I'm now a team lead with a 30% raise. Sarah and I are still together and recently started talking about moving in together. I've made new friends who don't know anything about my family drama and like me for who I am. I've also started volunteering with a local youth mentorship program. So many of these kids come from difficult family situations, and I find it healing to be the supportive adult I wished I'd had. One kid, who's dealing with his own golden child sibling, told me I was the first person to tell him it wasn't his job to sacrifice his happiness for his brother's comfort. Seeing the relief on his face made every difficult moment of my own journey worth it. My home office remains my home office. I've actually turned it into a bit of a sanctuary. I have plants now, something I never would have risked with Emily around, nice speakers for music while I work, and pictures from trips I've taken this year. Trips I could afford because I'm not funding anyone else's delusions. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd given in. If I'd let Emily take over my apartment. I probably would have lost it eventually. She would have damaged it or caused problems with neighbors, and I'd have been evicted. I'd still be the family scapegoat, still be sacrificing my happiness for someone who wouldn't appreciate it anyway. Instead, I stood up for myself. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most important. To anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, you are not responsible for your family's happiness. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. It's not selfish to have boundaries. It's not cruel to say no. And it's not your fault that other people face consequences for their own actions. Emily is 26 years old. She's had every opportunity, every advantage, every second chance. Her failures are not my responsibility. Her dreams are not my obligation. Her life is not my problem to solve. My life is my own. Finally, beautifully, peacefully my own. And that's where this story ends, not with a dramatic reconciliation or a family reunited, but with something better, a man who learned to value himself enough to say no, and mean it. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey. Your comments and messages kept me strong when I wanted to give in. You helped me see that I deserved better. And I finally believe it.